We got Gators Breakdown here. We know we're business.
Gators Breakdown, because there's never a dull moment in Gator Nation.
The Gators Breakdown podcast is ready to go. I am your host, David Waters. You can find me on social media at GatorDave_SDC, coming at you with a big episode. If you were following along all evening, you kind of knew recruiting was going to be on the forefront right here. Jabbar Flowers, the last remaining 2025 recruit out there, commits to the Florida Gators, putting a bow on a heck of a finish for the 2025 class. Billy Napier, this staff getting it done. This one did not look likely at one point when Flowers reclassified from the 26 class to the 25 class. Florida was in the mix. He was going to take some visits. As those visits were starting, didn't seem like Florida was going to be the choice. Visits happen. We'll get into the storyline, but in the end, Flowers picks the orange and blue. When it was originally announced, when he was reclassifying and who was he going to be picking, Miami was the school that was trending. In the end, it's the Florida Gators. What a heck of a haul to end the 2025 class. Absolutely stunning. With that stunning end to the season, of course, and that helped a long way. And Florida right now just being able to put a bow on this 25 class. So certainly lots and lots to get into on this episode of Gators Breakdown. We'll continue our spring practice coverage as well, getting into the running back room. Jabbar Juluke talking to the media. Jacoby Jackson talking to the media. So certainly lots to get into as spring football keeps on. But hey, heavy recruiting to start this episode of Gators Breakdown. Everybody leave your comments, what you think about this big time commit here for the Gators. Certainly, man, this DB room, we're going to get into that too. Going to dive into that. A lot to like about the Florida DB room in this class of 2025. So, hey, jam-packed episode here at Gators Breakdown. Hit that like button, subscribe right here on Gators Breakdown. It really goes a long way, but smash that like button. See the number in here. Leave some comments. Let me know what you guys think. Of course, we'll get into that and everything, but plenty to get into. If you missed the last episode of Gators Breakdown, cert there on the other side of things and talk a little bit of basketball on the last episode of Gators Breakdown, giving kudos to that Final Four team. You can listen to that too, right there. Last episode of Gators Breakdown. You know where to find it. Especially if you're right here already. But hey, let's get into it. Let's get into Jabbar Flowers, what he brings to the table for the Gators, and plenty of highlights to show. So we're going to get it started in that regard, right there with Flowers, as we talk about the type of player this is. Jabbar Flowers, 5'10" and a half, cornerback out of Miami Northwestern. He commits to the Gators. The 24/7 Sports Composite rates Flowers a 4-star and the 82nd ranked player in the country and the 12th ranked cornerback in the country. So 82nd overall on 24/7 Sports. So a top 100 player and the 12th ranked cornerback in the country, as well as the 12th best prospect out of the state of Florida. The On3 industry rankings, not quite as high. He's the 120th overall on that service, coming in as the 16th best cornerback and the 18th best player in the state of Florida. Now remember, go back to this. Flowers reclassified from the class of 2026 to the class of 2025 back in January. And when that happened, we knew it was going to be quite some time before we made this decision. The March was going to be his decision because he was going to take visits. But as I said, at that time, Miami, where, he's down there, South Florida, Miami was thought to be the leader in the clubhouse when he reclassified. I even remember during the stretch that probably wasn't going to be Florida. Florida might be done. Limited roster spots. Well, he officially visits North Carolina, Auburn, before visiting Florida on March the 10th. And then he visited Georgia, recently Notre Dame, Syracuse, and Miami. Coming off a Miami visit now, before making his decision this March 31st. Florida gets it done. Big statement right here. And hey, look, we were more than satisfied with the finishing touches on this class of 2025. Little did we know this reclassification was going to happen. Little did we know it was going to be Florida to pick in the end. So, hey, it's like I said, puts the astonishing finish to this class. The Miami product recorded a 10.43 100-meter dash time, which garnered him a state championship win. Flowers is an impressive returner, also 2 kickoffs for a total of 185 yards. So, man, you will be able to use him in the return game as well. Flowers also saw time on offense for Miami Northwestern, 6 carries for 154 yards and 2 touchdowns. On defense, he had 82 tackles, 3 tackles for loss, 1 interception, and 28 passes defended last season. In 2023, 37 tackles, 18 pass breakups, and an interception as a 10th grader, 18 pass breakups. Flowers turned heads at the Under Armour All-American Game. Remember, juniors can now take part in that. And when he reclassified, hey, that was going to be his only chance to play in the Under Armour All-American Game. He intercepted a pass from KJ Lacey in that game and later saved a touchdown. Interception caught some attention, of course, because he was a junior playing in the game against some of the nation's top senior players. Let's get to some analysis. Andrew Ivins of 24/7 Sports offers this analysis. Quote, an aggressive cover corner that could emerge as a real difference maker in the slot with his physicality and twitch. Has measured under 5'11", but makes up for the lack of length with his foot speed and thicker core. Does a favorable job of anticipating routes and fighting for positioning at the line of scrimmage as he battles with his hands and mirrors with his hips. Matured instincts constantly put him in position to make plays as he frequently arrives at the catch point ready to create a takeaway. Solid as an open field tackler at the stage as he will get ball carriers to the ground. Not afraid to lower the shoulder pad and pop someone either. Projects as a potential multi-year starter at the power 4 level that can man up with tough assignments, should offer plenty of value on special teams, and could get a look as a return man after finding the end zone multiple times early in the junior prep season. Track profile as well, as I mentioned, Florida 3A champion in a 100-meter dash as a sophomore. Likely to be very attractive to Sunday evaluators one day. And now get this, guys. The comparison Andrew Ivins and 24/7 Sports puts out there, you're going to love it. Former Gator defensive back Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. We get that? We get that till we're jumping for joy. Can we get the moxie of a Chauncey Gardner-Johnson as well? You know, holding up a Seminole head right there in Doak Campbell Stadium. I mean, Ron Zook Field. A little bit of trash talk, of course, but you gotta have that. You gotta have that moxie. You gotta have that profile as a DB sometimes. And hey, just give me the play of Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. I love that comparison. Love that comparison. That doesn't stop there. Let's go to the other big recruiting site, On3. Charles Powers offers, quote, an elite athlete at corner who doubles as one of the top returners nationally. Measured at around 5 foot 10 and a half, 175 pounds in the offseason before the 2024 season. Reclassified late in the process, joining the 2025 cycle in January of 25. A top combine athlete who is also a star sprinter. Posted a scintillating 10.43 second mark in the 100 meters, along with a 20.95 second time in the 200 meters. Has the speed to run with any receiver. Good fluidity and is able to change directions well. Physical as a run defender and isn't shy in lowering his shoulder. Closes quickly in defending the quick game. Dynamic return man who shows the ability to take kickoff and punts to the house. A top talent with the ball in his hands, helped his Miami Northwestern team to a state title in his final season. Had a great week of practice at the Under Armour All-American Game, earning top performer status for On3. Slighter frame and not physically imposing, will need to add strength, has early round upside with physical development. That of Charles Powers in on 3. About as good as a analysis that you can get. And look, and if he's anything like a Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, but one reason I think I like that compliment so much is because you heard may slide inside, play that nickel star position for Florida, where you've got to be able to do that. You've got to be able to, willing to get dirty, hit hard. You're closer to the line of scrimmage. You're going to have to stop the run, especially runs around the edges for running backs or receivers coming around an edge on some kind of sweep. That's the kind of player, that's the kind of profile you love to hear about a player like that. So Jabbar Flowers, big time commit for the Gators. Let's get into it about what it adds to this 2025 class. Had to do some research with this one, and certainly going to love it here. We were already satisfied with what Florida had in the secondary. And that was a storyline for me. And I was talking to David Soderquist, of High Top. I talk a good bit, and through this process, but then we were talking today too, and could other schools get in the mix? I mean, some thought Flowers would commit to Florida last week, or a couple weeks ago, somewhere along that timeline. Didn't happen. Not really concerned, there, because I knew he was the one who probably could take that visit to Miami and take some other visits there. And talking today to Dave, and of course, you had a signing ceremony, and I think it was like 6 to 9 o'clock, and of course you want to hear everything, and it will always go back to Cormani McLean's recruitment and who's involved. And it was Florida, and it was Miami, it was the 2 schools, and this one was kind of trending the same way. Hearing a lot of Florida coming into decision day with a late NIL changed the trend that we were hearing. But on that topic of NIL, that's what I was thinking. It's like Florida's got this really good defensive back class. Do they feel the need to keep up? Do they feel the need to get into an NIL battle because of what you've brought into this class already? And especially at this cornerback spot with Ben Hanks and Otis Conamani. But then you go to safety, and we're talking about nickel a little bit, and through spring practice, we've heard of Lagonza Hayward playing some nickel. So would Florida go and just get into a NIL and a recruiting battle here for a defensive back? The answer is yes, and thankfully so. Build that talent. And we'll talk about where this puts Florida in the rankings. No other schools getting commits right now. This was the last big one. The top remaining recruit out there for the class of 2025, and he's choosing the Gators. So this gives Florida four of the top 20 defensive back commits in the class of 2025. One of the best defensive back hauls in the country. Now, I'm going to be honest here, and I had to do the research. It's not quite as good as Oregon's. Believe it or not. Believe me, I didn't want to believe it. I'm just going and finding this research because, hey, look, I know Florida's got a really good defensive back class. It might be the best. I found out it's up there. But it's probably not quite as good as Oregon's. Now, using the 24/7 Sports Composite, that's what I'm using here. As the Ducks are bringing in cornerback Naeem Alford, he's the 4th overall defensive back in the country. Safety Trey McNutt, he's the 7th ranked overall defensive back. Cornerback Brandon Finney, he's the 8th best defensive back. And cornerback Doran Brew, he's the 16th best DB. So they have 4 of the top 16. So I said Florida has 4 of the top 20. Oregon has 4 of the top 16. And a little more top heavy. They got 3 of the top 10, does Oregon. So there was your competition. While Florida's bringing in 4 of the top 20. Stubbs is the 11th overall defensive back. Hanks the 13th overall. And Hayward, the 19th top defensive back. And Flowers is the 20th best defensive back. Man. It's time to get back to DBU, and it's going to take a class like this. Hopefully the defense just in general can keep up with what we saw toward the end of the year, but we know it's a long way from being able to claim DBU right now. Hopefully it happens before a lot of these guys, but these guys are going to be on the field. These are a highly ranked class. These guys are going to be on the field this year, as freshmen. And going a long way in bringing back that DBU stature for Florida. Texas is also bringing in 3 of the top 17. So those are your best defensive back classes in the country. Oregon, Florida, Texas. And remember, Florida's also bringing in 4-star cornerback Otis Conanbanny as the 65th overall best defensive back, and a lot of people think he's underrated. And let's go back and, besides Hanks, this all happened late and very late in the cycle. And let's not forget about this now. You're hurting rivals at the same time. With Hayward and Conanbanny, you were hurting Tennessee. In this instance with Flowers, you get one from Miami. You're hurting rivals in the process here of this late surge for the class of 2025 for the Gators. John Abel brings up a good point here. He's also the type of player we have failed to land recently and have ended up at our rival schools, OSU, Oregon, etc. I kind of went the other way with that now, just here. This class. Now, Sean, if you want to group this class together, then yeah, I see your point. If you want to group this class together, yeah, these guys were going to our rival schools, was going to Ohio State, was going to Oregon. Now, Oregon, still got their big fair share. And Ohio State, of course, as well. But, yeah. Roland X says, big relief over losing Will Harris. Yeah, that turned out to hurt here much, did it? And that's what people, when he reclassified and he had the whole Will Harris thing happen, Darren Wilson comes in, takes over. So certainly a big pull for him early on. But with Will Harris going to Miami, and there was some talk of Flowers in Florida when Will Harris was on staff that set up well for Florida. Well, Miami, the hometown school, gets Will Harris. Didn't matter. Did not matter. I know there's some talk too. Flowers' girlfriend's at Florida, playing a part. I don't care. Give me the guys on campus. Get me the guys on campus. And of course, NIL played a huge factor as well. That's what we're living in. It's the world we're living in. Sean says also, boom, even with reclassifying to the 25 class, he's still the 12th ranked player in the state of Florida, the exact type of player we need to land to win championships. That was the thing. He was a top player in the 26 classes, of course. And sometimes you never know how they're going to re-rate those players that reclassify. Well, he stayed up there pretty much. Homer J508 says, what a great DB class. Kenny Roberts, Dave, don't know what Billy's selling, but it's working. Best recruiting class in a long time. Go Gators. Let's get into that. As Big Gator Fan 2 says, top 7 class for Billy Napier, and that is correct. This now, with the commitment of Jabbar Flowers, now raises Florida's class to 7th on the 24/7 Sports Composite 2025 class rankings, 3rd in the SEC, or 4th in the SEC, behind Texas, Georgia, and Bama, and now passing Auburn. So only Texas, Georgia, Bama in front of Florida in this class of 2025. That's how you put a bow on a class, everybody. That's how you do it. That's how you do it. So big pull there for Billy Napier and staff. Top 7 class. I mean, just you can't overstate just how well this defensive back class is. And I'm eager to see some of these guys on the field already. Coming up this spring. Now, of course, Flowers, this late add. Of course, he's not taking part in spring practice or anything like that. So he'll be on campus there in May. That's how you do it. That's how you do it. I'm just excited that just how it all happened. Like I'm saying, go back a month ago, this didn't seem like much of a possibility. Gets that visit to Florida. Earlier in the month of March, things start to change a bit. But you had that last visit to Miami before his decision just hanging out there. Could they put the finishing touches on it on their end? Not able to do so. And I tell you what, it's been a trend. It's been a change. Billy Napier, Mario Cristobal hired at the same time. And the early direction for recruiting was trending Miami. Lately, it's been trending Florida. Kind of just seems like the whole, Cormani McClain picking Miami, then spurning Miami, going to Colorado, ends up coming to Florida. That whole thing maybe just started the trend of trending back towards Florida a bit. But this class right here, certainly a trend in the right direction. Trend in the right direction. Kevin Reed pops in. Billy Napier just doesn't stop recruiting. Evaluations are good. Stephen Blackwell says, what I wanted to hear, Gator Dave. Man, yep, excited. Excited. That's how you put a finish to a class. But there you go. Now, I think we can put a bow on the 2025 class. I don't think there's anything else out there going to happen. Here we are, the latest ever, and it might be in the history of Gators Breakdown moving forward, certainly up to this point, that we're ever going to do that class getting a commit in the last day of March. Now remember, it's a window, so that's why, but most guys commit on early signing day or at the latest, the February signing day. But here we are going into April and putting a bow on the 2025 class. I'm pretty sure we are. I don't think anything else is going to happen out there. But certainly a way to finish. Hey, and part of as we move forward, we're going to move forward. And we'll most recruiting talk now is just going to go for the class of 2026, I'm sure. But that should be it for 2025. But as we move forward, and look, a big reason for this happening, Florida victorious. I mean, it doesn't happen without the NIL being in a great place at Florida. That's how you get these players, how you get these great classes. It's how you get your DB room being able to be stacked like this. NIL's the way. I know you may not like it, everybody, but that's just the world we're living in right now. And as we continue our spring practice coverage and put a bow on a recruiting class, the coverage is brought to you by Florida Victorious. All spring long, a lot of new going on there. It's a great time to join. You can be the difference by joining Florida Victorious. Believe me, you can. If you can join, please do so. Your support can directly impact the outcome on and off the field. You want to help the Gators win? Well, just like when you pack the swamp, your support through Florida Victorious empowers the Gators to be their best. If you enjoy player access, you'll find it at Florida Victorious. Last week, there was a chat with Cormani McClain. Members receive invitations like the exclusive events like the meet and greet after the Orange and Blue game. That's coming up in just a couple of weeks. If you want access to meet the players on the field of the Swamp after the spring game, become a member of Florida Victorious. Great sports coverage there from Nick De La Torre. Some insider practice notes from Gators with scrimmage on Tuesday. We'll see what Nick's able to put up from there. But there's never been a better time to join. Join today and make a difference in bringing victory to the Orange and Blue. Visit floridavictorious.com to join now. All right, as I said, we'll continue spring practice coverage as well. Let's go to the running back room. Jabbar Juluke, Jacoby Jackson, they're in front of the media in the last few days discussing the running back position. A lot of change going on there, of course. Montrell Johnson on the way out. You know, Billy Napier's first 3 seasons at Florida, there was a constant in the running back room, and that was Montrell Johnson. Made his impact felt in that very first game in the Swamp versus Utah. One of my favorite players to cover in the Billy Napier era at Florida. One of the favorite players to hang out with, just away from the camera, away from the microphone, all that good stuff, was Montrell Johnson. A true player's player, good person. I'm going to miss him in the orange and blue. So big change, big change in the running back room. So here's what Jabbar Juluke had to say on his running back room without Montrell Johnson and the importance of carrying his example forward within the current group of running backs.
I think that Montrell Johnson is definitely going to be missed. His experience, his leadership, those are things that he brought to the table for us. And he was a good football player, right? But he was a great example for Jadan, Jacoby, Trey, KD. I think that those guys had an opportunity to see how a professional worked. And I'm hoping that that carries over with them so they can have an opportunity to go out here and be that type of example for Duke Clark, Chad Gasper, and when Byron Lewis gets here as well. So, but the standard is the standard, right? We're going to practice hard. We're going to play hard. We're going to be fundamentally sound. We're going to make sure that we know our assignments, and we're going to give everything that we have. Effort is not going to be an option. We have non-negotiables, right? And if they don't do what we're supposed to do, then we have problems. So some things that I'm not bending on what we have in that room. Unfortunately, these young men are talented. And so we're going to continue to compete and work extremely hard both on and off the football field.
There you go, Jabbar Juluke, and lets you know the importance of Montrell Johnson. And certainly you hear him and his comments about that room and about just the accountability that he brings to the table. He might be the best position coach Florida has. I mean, you are not going to worry about the running back room at the University of Florida as long as Jabbar Juluke is coaching that room up. And look, he's very accountable. Sounds tough on that room, but it pays off. Montrell Johnson coming from Louisiana, being a quality SEC running back. Trevor Etienne comes in as a freshman, lights the world on fire. Jadan Baugh comes in as a true freshman, lights the world on fire. I mean, does a really good job of identifying talent, developing the talent. And now, I mean, you got a really deep room, and just a room you're not really going to worry about. And it kind of just starts there with Jabbar Juluke. And, he won me over big time last year. And he was talking about Montrell Johnson, and he's choking up in that media situation, just talking about the type of person Montrell Johnson is and what he means to him. And seeing that, it really opened my eyes of that's why that running back room is so good. I mean, you get a guy like Jabbar Juluke here, and the production that we see out of that spot year in and year out. And it should be no surprise. Should be no surprise. And now you got some good experience in that room to tie with a lot of potential in that room, and just the way, Florida, because it's Jabbar Juluke, in some, in a weird way to look at it, as we just got through talking about recruiting, we'd all love the 5 stars. And Florida's had their fair share of not getting 5 stars at the running back spot. And they go to Texas and they go to other schools, and you have guys like Trevor Etienne in on your roster and goes to Georgia. But we'd all love the 5-star at that position. But we know the value of a running back. And I'm not sure you're still going to, from what Florida has shown at that position, if any of those 5 stars had come in the last few seasons, I'm not sure the room's any better. And when NIL being is what it is, and there's not an unlimited, Florida's good. Florida's got good NIL. Really good NIL. But you still got to be smart in the way you spend it. And Jabbar Juluke goes a long way in that. Being able to identify players, get value out of players who are not coming in now. Eventually, they're probably going to demand that NIL. You get a guy like Jadan Baugh and what he was able to do as a true freshman. I'm sure his NIL was going up in year 2. Montrell Johnson's was high up there after, year after year at Florida. But that's the way you want it to work. You want to be able to identify those guys produce, and then you kind of just quote unquote earn your keep. I don't think Florida's going to go out of their way in that NIL world, in recruiting, especially with the track record of what we've seen at the running back position. There's really no need to. And you guys know I'm a stars matter guy, through and through. But at some point, results have got to come through, and the results at running back have been pretty darn good. Now you pair that and what we'll get into in just a bit with an experienced offensive line, and I expect these running backs to look even better. All right, so let's get into the players a little bit. So, like I said, Jacoby Jackson was part of the media brigade as well in the last few days. So I was kind of surprised it wasn't Jadan Baugh, but, it was Jacoby Jackson. And you'll kind of maybe see why. But here's Jabbar Juluke and Jacoby Jackson talking about Jackson's role on the team.
Jack Cheese, Kobe Jack Cheese, that's what we call him. He is, when you have a student or a son or a child, whenever it may be, and you see that they get it, you get even more proud and excited about what they're able to do. Coming in from junior college and going into the SEC and getting a little bit of humble pie, having the red shirt thinking that he was ready to play. But he was patient. He still was steadfast to his craft, and he was learning. And I'm extremely proud of him, what he has done. I think Jack Cheese has a little more in his tank. He's built himself up mentally, physically, as a really productive football player in the SEC. And I'm excited about what he's going to be able to do as the season progresses as well. We still have work to do, right? And now we have to work on how do you handle success, right? Do I get complacent or do I get hungrier, right? And right now we are hungry. We're starving. We want to get better, right? And we got to make sure that we continue to do that. So Jacoby is one of those kids that I'm looking forward to seeing as well.
The spring has been smooth. It's been very good. Just staying consistent, continue to learn the system, and just becoming a better running back every day.
And you and Jadan are kind of the two-headed monster, if you will, of this unit. After last season, just how confident are you two?
We're very confident. Really, we just really ready to play the season right now. But just staying consistent is the main goal, and just becoming better any way we can be. So that's the real main thing right now.
How has your mentality, obviously goes without saying, but been different this spring practice? Knowing you're, one of the guys this year as opposed to last year. Being a little further down the depth chart.
Just getting everybody, like the younger guys, on the same level as us. Just making sure they're paying attention to detail, knowing everything what they need to do, and just staying positive through anything. Really, just always motivating everybody, and just being a leader. To be honest, that's it. You're obviously,
Played a lot of years, but haven't been at Florida as long as someone like Montrell. When he was on the team last year, just not having that kind of veteran leadership. Just how different is that in campus so far?
Not having that, then you look forward to yourself. So it's time for me to just become that leader. So it's just leading day by day, doing everything the right way. Watching Trell when Trell was here, took the key things from what he did and basically bring it to my own game and just do it like that.
Are there any guys or particular trends you've noticed in practice so far that you think are going to be something to keep an eye on this coming season? Oh yeah, definitely. Number 21, KD Daniels, definitely a guy to keep your eye on. Say he's a guy who come in ready to work every day. He's very confident now, so I would say yeah, definitely KD.
You and Jadan sort of being on a similar trajectory last year and, getting more playing time as the season went on. How much do you think that helps knowing that you guys are kind of on the same track, if that makes sense?
Yeah, it definitely helped because we expect to play, but as the season went on, injuries happened and we played more, so that just built confidence. So now I think we're like very confident in our ability and our game and the system that we learned. So just think this year is a very good year to look forward to running the ball.
About the offensive lineman, you talked about Austin and Damien, but 4 starters returning, Bryce stepping up at right tackle, and he has experiences. How much is that as a confidence boost for the running back room, knowing that you got the same unit there in front of you helping you guys out?
Oh, yeah, running back room with the O-line is really just communication. Like, I communicate with the O-line like we all on one accord, so it shouldn't be, like, no misses for, like, blitz pickup or anything because we're all on the same page. That's what helps us, the communication. Everybody knows their job, so they're going to communicate whatever else need to be communicated as well. So.
Jabbar Juluke went on to say about Jacoby Jackson, proud of his journey, that Jacoby Jackson is proud of his journey of being an undiscovered player during COVID and having to go to JUCO route and then graduate from that level in 2 years and also graduate from Florida in a total of 3.5 years between the two. He's very appreciative of playing at this level of competition at Florida and in the SEC, and that he could share with the young guys that it isn't always easy and to take full advantage of the opportunity. Juluke challenged him to be a leader and is looking forward to Jackson in that leadership role. So we go back a year ago, and Jackson, a breakout player who moved up from 4th on the depth chart to become a really key contributor for the 2024 season after transferring from Oklahoma Community College in 2023. He had redshirt. You heard Jabbar Juluke say that. He had to redshirt and kind of had to adjust. A time of adjustment there. So thought he might have been ready right away, but wasn't. Had to not play in 2023. Broke through in 2024. Tied Jadan Baugh for the team lead with 7 rushing touchdowns while averaging 5.4 yards a carry, 95 attempts for 509 yards, and excelled against top competition. Now, of course, these games were losses, but 190 yards, 2 touchdowns against Georgia and Texas. Made his first career start against Georgia, had 74 yards and 1 touchdown. Followed that with a career high 116 yards and score on 19 carries versus Texas. In that Georgia game, Florida had Aiden Warner at quarterback, very, very limited. And Jacoby Jackson goes a long way in that game for Florida being able to run the ball pretty well on Georgia, even though Georgia knows that run game's coming. Jacoby Jackson played 222 snaps and is projected to be a great 1-2 punch with Jadan Baugh. I like that they both bring some versatility to the room, can be receivers out of the backfield as well. They both showed that last year. With a healthy DJ Lagway, Jacoby Jackson, Jadan Baugh, I look for these guys to bust even more big runs if defenses have to start accounting for Lagway's legs as well. We missed that toward the end of last year, and the running game still was getting better as the season went on. Now, I think you pair that with the offensive line that Jackson and Juluke both raved about. The pass blocking is the biggest area for improvement there, but run blocking really showed up so well later in the season. You were limited at quarterback, but still able to run on Georgia. Florida had that big game-sealing run. Jadan Baugh, that big game-sealing run versus LSU. And then the next week, you go back and look at the game against Ole Miss, and it was timely runs from Florida. You go look at the stat. Don't look at the board there. Actually, you know what? Go look at the stat board, because I'm going to tell you what it shows. You're not going to look at it and say that was some great performance for Florida. But Florida ran the ball better than any other team on that Ole Miss defense last year. The average per carry for Florida, now I don't remember off the top of my head, it was like 3.8 or something like that. I'm trying to go off the top of my head here. But that average was the highest that Ole Miss had given up all season long. And that defense, pretty good in their own right. Really, really good Ole Miss defense. Florida ran the ball on them better than anybody else did all season long. And we were seeing that toward the end of the season. It wasn't really equaling much. It kept Florida in the Georgia game. Florida was running the ball well in the second half. Texas game, take what you want to from that. The LSU game, the Ole Miss game, ending the season. Florida's running the ball well. Now it's time to pick up from there. You got that offensive line. Most of those guys are back. Jackson and Baugh return. with that offensive line. Hopefully it is pick up where you left off in that 2024 season. All right, here we go. For more on Jadan Baugh, some interesting comments here. Here's Jabbar Juluke again.
He has a lot of work to do, right? I equate it to having a wedding. Probably not old enough to have a wedding, right? But when your brides and groommen don't show up to get their tuxedo or their dress fit, you gotta chase them down. You see the finished product on the field. That's the reception. So he's a work in progress. He's very talented. He loves football. He's not in love with it yet, and we're trying to get him in love with football. And his ceiling is extremely high, but he does have some work to improve on. We all do, even myself. So we're trying to get better every day. And I think Jaden's heading in the right direction. I'm extremely proud of him, what he's done in the classroom, what he's done on the football field. It's not easy to be a freshman and come play well in the SEC. And he was able to do so. That's an assessment to who he is and how much he wanted to improve. And again, it goes back to he had a good example, right, with Montreal. And Montreal would not allow him not to be a student of the game. So now he has to continue to do so. And I'm looking forward to what he can become.
Those comments, I mean, there was a lot of good being said. It was about this time a year ago, we get to the spring football game, and there you go. Jadan Baugh goes off, gets on everybody's radar, and that carries over into the season. Very rare does that happen, especially for a true freshman to go show out. You get spring game heroes all the time that don't ever turn out to do anything during the regular season, and especially for true freshmen. Jadan Baugh didn't fit in that category. He went on to do some big things. But these comments here, and the one that caught me, now maybe looking too deep into this. You guys let me know. But I'm going to look into it. Might be looking too far here. But Juluke did say, when he went back and was talking about Jacoby Jackson, that he was, quote, in love with the game. And says Baugh has to get there. Now, I'm marking it up to Juluke keeping Baugh humble. But it was a noticeable remark. It was said. And then maybe it's trying to connect too many dots, but hey, here we are in spring football. This is really all we don't get to see a whole lot. It's just, it just caught my ear. But we're in spring. All we get's the press conferences. This is all we got. All we got. So, of course, some comments are going to be probably look too far into it. I'm not putting much stock in it. I think Jadan Baugh is just going to be fine going into year two. Florida's leading rusher last year, 673 yards. Tied for the team lead with 7 rushing touchdowns on 133 carries, 5.1 yard per carry in the 2024 season. Freshman All-SEC honoree. He had 4 starts. Tied a school record with 5 rushing touchdowns against Kentucky in his first start. Recorded his first 100-yard game with 106 yards in that Kentucky game and delivered that so famous game-sealing 55-yard touchdown run against LSU. 269 snaps, finished with 8 total touchdowns. Had that 1 receiving score in a big win versus Ole Miss. Had 31 carries over his first 6 games before he broke out and saw double-digit carries in nearly every game remaining. If you go back to kind of before spring, there were some quotes that looks like a grown man in the offseason. Of course, projected to be running back 1 here in 2025, but I think a good 1-2 punch with him and Jacoby Jackson. And you might see Jackson start a game, might be Baugh starting a game. I don't know if Baugh starts every game because I think Jacoby Jackson is good in his own right. I think Florida, really good situation here. Gravy Biscuits kind of going right here on the comments, kind of going where I was saying. I think it was kind of, he says, I think it was to keep Baugh in check. Yeah, that's kind of where I was leaning toward as well. But it was noticeable. It was noticeable. But as I said, it's talking season. It's talking season right now. I don't want to look too far into it. But I think it's worth bringing up just because of how it was said. Jabbar Juluke was also asked about KD Daniels. It says, quote, physical, tough runner. He's in love with it. He's hungry. Wants to prove he can play. playing at 205 pounds right now, will surprise people with his speed and agility and physicality. Good pass blocker and working on being a better pass catcher. Remember, KD Daniels was injured last year. Thought we might see him here and there, but didn't really get to it. But certainly ready this year. Like a redshirted in 2024. Showed some promise in limited action. 7 yards a carry. With 77 yards, 1 touchdown, 11 attempts across 4 games. Finished the season strong. Got that playing time in the Gasparilla Bowl. 5 season-high carries there. 55 yards in that one. And remember, the 25-yard touchdown after that fumbled snap was kind of a crazy play there. Go back to what he was able to do in Mississippi. 2,737 yards, 29 touchdowns as a senior. Expected to be a change of pace player, I think, this year. But Jabbar Juluke mentioning the speed and agility and physicality probably fits in pretty well. I saw it asked about right here. Michael Bell does ask, what about Webb? Trayon Webb. I was surprised listening to both Jabbar Juluke and Jacoby Jackson's press conferences. Wasn't brought up. Not much about Trayon Webb as he looks to bounce back from injury, of course, with him limited and giving more opportunities to KD Daniels this spring. How does it end up translating? Does Daniels end up surpassing him this spring? How much does the limitation this spring of Webb affect the room in the depth chart? I think it's certainly worth asking. It's a deep, talented room. We know freshmen can come in and be ready to play as well, contribute. So I'm really interested in seeing where Trayon Webb fits into all of this. I think he can earn his carries, but the competition is massive in this room. It's a good thing. It's a good thing for Florida. Good thing for Trayon Webb, too. You got to go out there and earn it. But going into his 3rd season, he was, remember, the number 2 back going into the season last year. And look, and that was the good thing about having these guys ready. Jadan Baugh, Jacoby Jackson, Montrell Johnson. Remember, fall injuries last year. We were wondering if he was going to even play in the opener versus Miami. Injured later in the season as well. Jadan Baugh, Jacoby Jackson carrying the load. Injuries may happen where Trayon Webb is going to have to be ready to play. But this is a deep, deep room. Ball, Jackson, Webb, Daniels, Waltez Clark, Chad Gasper, Byron Lewis. You're going what? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 deep at the running back spot. Expect some redshirts to happen, of course, but we already know if you're a freshman and prove you deserve to be on the field, you're going to get on the field. Jabbar Juluke was asked about the continuity in the offensive line and some strong statements here. And he was asked about that offensive line helping him and his guys, and he says Rob Sell's one of the best offensive line coaches in America, and that you could really see that towards the middle and the end of last season. Goes on to say that having that group back that has been coached up for 3 or 4 seasons by Rob Sell, it gives that offensive line a sensibility of knowing what to expect. And it allows Sell to demand things from that group. He's been with Sell for 7 years, and he says there's a rhythm to it, and they're in a good spot. There you go. Strong statement there. I think this year's going to go a long way with that kind of statement of Rob Sell being one of the best offensive line coaches in America. You got so many returning pieces, and kind of speaking to that 3-4 year timeline, not a lot of highly heralded guys, but a development, and I've said this over and over again, but a development is going to be your calling card. We should have started seeing it last year, I think, in year 3, and we did as the season went on. But with this many pieces coming back, and we've talked about this with the offensive line, it's time to hit the ground running. So there we go. There we go. looking at the running back room and pair that with the offensive line, man, really should give Florida a strong running attack. And let's not forget, and I'll go back to it one more time, DJ Lagway's ability as well. If he's fully healthy with that hamstring and can run and he's ready to go, it can give a threat too. And defenses can't really crash down on running backs, or, if they got to worry about Lagway having a keeper and going around the edge and he hands it off to a back and they just scoot up the middle. I'm telling you, Lagway and his ability to keep defenses honest, to me, I think should open up some bigger runs for this group. And Jadan Baugh's proven in a big-time SEC game, he can go take a 50-yarder for a home run touchdown. Let's get into it a little bit more before we wrap up here on this episode of Gators Breakdown. Let's get more into this room. Let's just go down the room. Already hit Jadan Baugh a good bit. Jacoby Jackson, Trayon Webb, Katie Daniels. Listen, Waltez Clark. Early enrollee. He was the first commit of the 2025 class. He was the number 22 running back in the 2025 class. 6.1 yard rushing attempts per game in high school. Finished his high school career with 1,735 rushing yards, 38 touchdowns, 77 receptions for 1,326 yards, and 16 receiving touchdowns. So Waltez Clark gonna be that versatile piece in this Florida Gator backfield. 27.8 yards per kickoff return as well. Play a little bit of defense too. So maybe some special teams. Chad Gasper, he's on campus as well. Walk on, early enrollee because of that ACL tear that ended his senior season. So preferred walk on because of that injury there. He got injured just 3 games into his senior season. Accumulated 1,566 rushing yards and 23 touchdowns over 4 seasons, 40 receptions for 459 yards. Limited this spring. And then let's not forget, he's not on campus yet for spring practice, Byron Lewis. 4-star recruit, a late flip from Florida State, remember? There from Fort Lauderdale. 10.9 carries across 43 varsity games, 7.6 yards per attempt, 47 rushing touchdowns. Not as much as the receivers, the other guys. As I said, not on campus yet. We'll be there in May. There you go. Good look at the running back room there for Florida. Look, talk about Byron Lewis, Fort Lauderdale guy, 2025 class. Talked about the commitment of Javari Flowers, another South Florida prospect, Nashawn Montgomery. In Florida, pretty good South Florida recruiting class there for the Gators. Pretty good. Ben Hanks. I mean, you got Ben Hanks and Flowers out of Miami's stronghold, supposed to be stronghold. 2 of the better cornerbacks in the state. And they're going to Florida. And they hail from South Florida. You take it, right? As I said, Florida hurting rivals with the big push to end this class. Florida put it on Miami a good bit in this 2025 class. Love to see it. And let's not forget, that comes after Miami destroyed Florida in the first game of the season. In the end, on the recruiting trail, it ends up not really mattering all that much. All right, everybody. Good stuff. Good stuff. Loaded episode right here on Gators Breakdown on the recruiting trail. Continuing spring practice coverage. Wouldn't have it any other way. Would not have it any other way. That'll do it for this episode of Gators Breakdown. I'm your host, David Waters. You can find me on social media at GatorDave_SEC. Guys and girls out there, thank you for joining me on this episode of Gators Breakdown.